Welcome into the Teals Country Show. I decided to go to YouTube today for this one because pretty special episode here as the Timberwolves are going to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in my lifetime. I mean, we won a playoff series for the first time in my lifetime this year as well. A lot of great things to talk about here. We're going to start with Game 7, then we're going to move into the series as a whole. I'm going to end this with a little bit of a Dallas Mavericks series preview as that's the Western Conference Finals. Um, but yeah, biggest comeback in Game 7 NBA history. We were down by 20 at one point. I mean, 2 minutes into the quarter, we went down 20. I was just completely shocked with our ability to get back into that game. I mean, even in the down, parts of our season, if we had losing streaks or bad losses, it was never that we weren't resilient enough. It was never that we didn't fight hard enough. It was usually something to do with the offense. Um, that was usually the issue, but consistently throughout this year, this team's had so much fight. They had every reason to not win that game after being down 20 because of how bad they were playing. They figured it out, turned it around. And that's where we're going to start with this, obviously, because, Ant said going to be one of the better game sevens ever. Don't know where it would rank, but it's got to be somewhere. Um, Off the bat, the Wolves scored 38 in the first half. And like that was probably the worst I've seen the offense all year, if I'm being quite honest. Like it was a complete struggle to do anything. And then we started to figure out. And I'll be talking about Cat for a considerable amount of this because of how well I think he's been playing this postseason. He was the one consistent part of the offense throughout the game. 23 points for him. He was the big reason why, we didn't we still were in fighting distance a lot in this game with the shots that he was making. And I'll talk about Ant in this game, in a little bit here as well, but he didn't play too well, but he still found ways to impact winning, and that's awesome for him. Um, Huge fourth quarter though, especially from somebody like Rudy Gobert, who didn't have a very great game. I saw a reporter who I think works for the Jazz, so he's covered Gobert throughout his career. I posted on my Instagram story. He thought that fourth quarter was the best of Rudy's career. I don't really know where that stacks up, but he was awesome that fourth quarter. He's a huge reason why we won that game. The big thing for the Wolves here is they just had more stamina, in my opinion. I think they were of the better conditioned team, and we basically ran a 7-man rotation last night. Kyle Anderson played like 4 minutes. I guess you consider that an 8-minute rotation, but he didn't really play a rotation. I guess he just played like one shift and he was off. Um, so it was basically a 7-man rotation for us tonight. And as we scroll to Denver, kind of the same thing for them. I mean, They were they were kinda close to a 6-man. They had Holiday play 9 minutes and Reggie Jackson play 5. Nikola Jokic just kinda was gassed at the end of the game because he played 46 minutes, and the Timberwolves, the reason why they didn't get gassed is because they've built up, all of this energy, I feel like, by having such a deep team, and we just have so many more guys in the playoffs that performed for us. We just have a deeper roster, and that's a big reason why we were able to, win these later games and why we were well more conditioned because guys were just more ready to play because they didn't have as much tread on their tires. And that's, a big reason why this Wolves team is going deep is because of their insane depth. I mean, we could have ran, I think we ran 9-man rotations in some of these games when Denver's barely running 7, sometimes 6 in these games, and that's a big reason why I think we took it down the stretch in Game 7. We were just the far more deep and well-conditioned teams. We have so many more options off the bench than Denver. I saw Christian Brown say post-game that he thought Denver was the better team. I disagree. The Wolves are the better team. I think if they played the series again, the Wolves would win again. Like I would be really surprised if Denver were to beat this team this year. But it was an awesome game 7 in general. Then we'll kind of shift to some series thoughts as I bring up the overall series stats here. We're gonna start with the defense as I scroll up to there's Shea. I don't know if you can see that. The game scores. So this is the final scores of every game. The Nuggets didn't score over 100 in any of their losses. Like, that's so insane. The Wolves held them to 99 in game 1, 80 in game 2, um, game 6, 70, which is insane to win by 45, and then 90. I mean, it turns out the best defensive team in the league elevates themselves in the playoffs, and we saw that in the first round against the Phoenix Suns as well. I mean, it's crazy what the defense has done. You can't even, like, get into the half court cleanly against this team. They pressure you immediately. It's just we have so many amazing defenders on this roster, that gave guys issues throughout the series. Jamal Murray only had one game above 20 points. He's been somebody who historically for him, Jamal Murray's a playoff riser. He was not a playoff riser in this series at all. He had a very rough series, and that's largely due to guys like Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, Nikhil Alexander Walker. Those guys did a phenomenal job guarding a guy like him. So you talk about defense. We're gonna start with Denver stats because um, I want to talk about defense here. Jokic still got his, but you're completely okay with Jokic putting up 29, 11, and 8 here because the important part for this series is you go down to number 4, Michael Porter Jr., 10 points per game, 32% from 3. Michael Porter Jr. just couldn't do anything in this series. I think he combined for 25 points in his last 4 games. The Timberwolves completely took him out of these games, and that's a big reason why they won. Michael Porter Jr. was killing the Lakers round 1. He was probably the second best player for Denver in that maybe third, I don't know, but he was awesome for Denver in that first round series. He was awesome for them in the playoffs last year. That's kind of the thing with this Denver team is taking the other guys out, limiting them. Aaron Gordon had a really good series from 3, 58% for Aaron Gordon. That is an insane outlier. I still can't believe he shot that well from 3 in the series. But when it mattered in game 7, Aaron Gordon had 4 points and 4 rebounds in 42 minutes. We figured out how to limit him. Obviously, you limit the heck out of Jamal Murray, who averages 18 points per game in the series. But you're okay with Jokic scoring. This is a little bit over Jokic's season average, but you're completely okay with that if he's not averaging a triple-double because Jokic is dangerous when he's finding his teammates. But I think it's time to move into the Karl Anthony Towns talk of this, and I I think Cat has destroyed the narratives of 2 things. I think he's a platformer now. I think he's figured that out. I said in December, if there was a year for him to do that, I think it was this year. I think we saw the signs months ago with Cat this year being different for him. I think he's fully accepted being the number 2. I think he's fully bought into his role more so this year. And I just think his overall, there's still like a lot of dumb fouls in my opinion. And, during the season, there was turnover moments as well. But I think we saw a development of him just being a little bit smarter of a basketball player. And man, he's been playing some really excellent basketball this postseason. And we'll start with the offensive side of things, which was definitely like it was very impressive, but I'm more impressed with the defense. I'll say that. You look at the scoring number for Cat, 18.6 points per game. I don't really think that does justice to how good he was on the offensive end. Like everything for Cat in this playoffs has been super timely. You think back to the Sun series, game 2, we were down at halftime by a little bit, and then he comes out in the second half. I think he had like he had an 8-0 run, and that's what kind of put us over the top in that game. That's why we won game 2 against Phoenix yesterday. All the timely baskets he had, especially in that third quarter, that eventually led to our comeback. He had a super timely block yesterday as well. Everything Cat does is just timely. It's loud. It matters. It'd be cool if he was averaging 23 per game. but it doesn't really matter that he's averaging 18 because of how well he's doing. You look at the efficiency as well. 51, almost 40, 79 splits. That's awesome. Um, I would like to see the turnovers here. Yep. 13 turnovers for Cat in this series. So that's less than 2 turnovers a game. You know, you can easily live with that. He's not making the dumb decisions. He's making the right decisions. So that's, I mean, 3 assists per game. He had a widely positive assist turnover ratio. That's what you need from Cat, and he provided that. But more so with Cat, it was on the defensive end, and I kind of wish I had the numbers pulled up from the tweet I had earlier. But I remember off the top of my head, there hasn't been a player in basketball that's guarded Nikola Jokic better over the last 2 years than Karl Anthony Towns. That's a fact. Um, over a legit sample size, though. Like, we're not just talking like one game. Like, Denver and Minnesota have played 20 games the last 2 years, and Cat has completely. I mean, I don't know if I'd say dominated, but he has done things to Jokic that I haven't seen anybody in the world do in the last 4 years. Ever since he won his first MVP, Cat in this playoffs held Jokic to 47% from the field. That was on 55 shots, so it's not like it was like Cat was guarding Jokic a lot. Like, that's the thing with this Wolves team. That's the plan, and that was the plan last postseason as well, as have Cat guard Jokic and Gobert is at the rim guarding Gordon because Gordon doesn't really space the floor, even though he shot 55% from three. Ridiculous, um, but not even just shooting 43% from the field this postseason. Jokic shot 19% from three. He had 8 turnovers. I mean, Cat was awesome there. And it wasn't even just this postseason. Last postseason, I brought up the numbers too, because it's not like it was some crazy fluky performance from Cat. He did the same thing last year. 5 postseason games against Denver. Jokic shot 37% on Cat with 3 turnovers. Like, Cat's done it now in back-to-back postseasons. That's a 12-game sample size of Cat just guarding Jokic super well, better than anybody has. And he deserves a lot of praise for that. I think he's actually a good defender. I'm not afraid to say I think Cat's a good defender. Um, I don't think he's insanely positive on that end, but like, people who are bad defenders don't go out and guard Kevin Durant and guard him well, and then they don't guard Jokic better than anybody's ever guarded Jokic. Like, that just doesn't happen if you're a bad defender. Cat went through the gauntlet of, like, I think Durant averaged like 27 per game in the Phoenix series, which is like his season average, and he had Karl Anthony Towns guarding him, who was a center for a decade. That's crazy. And then Jokic just struggled when it was Cat on him, because the reason why Cat's so good at guarding Jokic is he's so good at fighting for positioning defensively. He doesn't give Jokic much room to breathe. He doesn't let him get to the post. He's always there fronting him. Um, and Cat's really good at guarding the perimeter and sticking with guys and getting good contests. He was always getting good contests on Jokic. Um, so yeah, I definitely need to give Cat some love there. Another guy that deserves love is Anthony Edwards. I mean, he's been one of the best players in the playoffs this postseason. Almost 28 points per game in this series on good efficiency. He had a rough game 7 when it came to shooting, 6 of 24 from the field. That was really rough. You need him to play better than that when it comes to that. But what, like, the thing with Ant, and we saw this in Phoenix game 2 as well. The reason why Ant's a different young type of player that makes him really stand out to me is, despite when he's struggling like that from the field, can't get anything to go, he's still finding ways to impact the game winning wise at a high level. And that came out the defensive end. He was unbelievable in the second half guarding Jamal Murray. I mean, Jamal couldn't do anything. I still believe Ant's one of the best isolation defenders in the league. I think he's going to star in that role with Team USA. I think people are gonna really figure out how good this dude is on the defensive end for Team USA. I seriously can't remember the last time in a true isolation possession that he's gotten beaten. Or I had to start another one. My other one crashed out for every reason, but I was talking about Ant. Um, it's just so impressive that he was able to, keep his composure in that game, and like look at the turnover now. I have to change the tab, um, but Ant was kind of out of control when it came to shooting, and 624, 210 from three, but he had one turnover in the game, and that was huge. His passing out of double teams towards mainly at the end of the game became super valuable. Um, he was doing it like he was a big reason why Jaden scored 23. Jaden got a lot of open shots because Ant was trying to driving and kicking out to him. And that was really working. I think that's something that we're really going to see against Dallas. I think Dallas is probably going to evidently double more because I think that it's not like this is a hot take, but they definitely have less defensive talent when it comes to guarding the perimeter on that team. Like they don't have somebody who's as good as KCP. I think Derrick Jones Jr. is really good, but I don't think he's on that level, and I don't think they have anybody that can guard forwards like Aaron Gordon. I think their paint protection is really solid though with the two bigs they rotate, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But Ant playing through adversity was pretty awesome to see, and I think that's what makes him different between all of these other young players around the league, and it's a big reason why he's gonna be the next face of the league, in my opinion, because he's just a winner. Um, wouldn't it be great? Like you talk about him being the next face of the league and like the insane trajectory Ant's on as a player. Like, what if he wins the title this year, 22 years old? He would be ahead of, I mean, you think about like LeBron and Jordan, the two greatest to do it. They didn't win a title to their late 20s. Like, I feel super confident Ant's going to win one before he's 25. And what if he does it when he's 22? If he wins it this year, if we win the title this year, we're going to be the favorites to win next year. Believe that. Like, can you imagine the trajectory of Ant on an all-time list if he can win a title in his fourth year? That would be insane. Don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I think it's fun to think about because I mean, he has the chance to be one of the greatest to do it. There's not many players in history that you can probably count on your hand how many players have been this good at the age Ant's at right now. Um, awesome two-way player. I'm pretty comfortable with saying he's a top 8, top 7, something like that player in the league. That's not something I would have said before the postseason. I would have said top 15, something like in that range. I think he's elevated himself to another tier in the NBA. I think before the playoffs, I considered him as a bridge, best player on a title team right now. Not because he's not talented enough, but just because he's 22 years old and it takes time to get to that level. I think he can be the best player on the title team now. Um, and I think he's one of like 10 players in the league that you can say that about. Um, but yeah, Ant deserves a lot of praise for everything he's done. Jaden McDaniels, man, first back to back 20 plus point games of his career comes in game 6 and game 7. I mean, that's crazy. I keep saying it and I'll keep saying it. The difference between him giving you 15 a night and 9 a night is the difference between us getting eliminated yesterday and us potentially winning the finals. Like the amount of everything he opens up for our offense and how positive it is for him to get going offensively and how unbeatable we can be when he gets it going is crazy. when he's hitting those corner threes and they have to close out hard to him and they can't leave him open all the time, that changes everything for the offense. It makes Ant's life easier, it makes Cat's life easier, it makes the Mike and Rudy pick and roll game easier, which I think we're going to see more of in this next series. Like, he was the difference maker over the last 2 games. We do not win this series if Jaden does not have those 2 awesome games. There's a lot of chatter, when after rough Jaden games and, maybe if the Wolves are on a losing streak and people are upset, they like to, talk about, "Man, Jaden's contract looks so bad." I've never gotten to that point. Even if we would have been out of the playoffs right now, I would be completely comfortable with what we're paying Jaden going forward. I just believe in his talent so much. He's had a rough year. I think he's had a lot of weird injuries. He obviously started the year injured. He came back the 3rd game of the season. He hurt his hand again. He's been wearing that arm brace, not like an arm brace, but he's been like wearing like this wrap thing on his hand like the entire year now. He's still wearing it now. So I think an off season coming up where he gets some time off will help him. Don't know if he's still dealing with any of that stuff, but I think that stuff kind of messed up his year, as well as him just being 23 years old and kind of being asked to do an insane amount. Like, he's being asked to go chase around guys like Stephen Curry, and then we're still asking him, "Oh, can you score 15 a game for us?" Like, he'll be able to at some point, but he's just so young at this point. It's his 4th year in the league. Um, it's going to come. I think he's going to find it consistently next year, would be my guess. Maybe it's this postseason he finds it. But yeah, I mean, he's the X factor. He's the difference maker. And he's a big reason to why I confidently say that I think the team that we're seeing this year is not going to be as good as next year and the year after. Um, he holds the keys to a lot of the growth of this team. I mean, just specifically like next year about being better. Like, he's going to improve, but another ant leap could happen. I would expect it after another summer with Team USA. So, not going to get too much into that because I have thoughts about that as well, being better next year. I'll probably do that in a future show. Um, but Jaden was awesome. Gobert had a weird series. I mean, he had to take, he didn't play a game for a week because of the birth of his son, which congratulations to him. And 4th defensive player of the year the day after that, I believe. So I think he just had a weird series with, like, it just got kind of interrupted in a good way. Um, and I think he kind of got out of rhythm. Um, but he was still very impactful. Obviously, he was insane in that, game 7, 4th quarter. Um, but like, people were talking about Jokic cooking him all the time. I don't know how he was supposed to play better defense on Jokic. I really don't. He was doing everything on him. Jokic in game 5 specifically, that was a generational offensive game. That was so ridiculous. Nobody in the world, even Cat, wasn't gonna stop him. Like, Cat was in foul trouble that night, you know? I think Rudy's gonna have a much better series coming up, though, against Dallas, and he wasn't that bad here at all. I mean, still averaged a double-double for crying out loud with good defense. So, if that's the low for Rudy, I don't wanna know what the high is. Um, but let's get back to full screen here, if it will load. Okay. So, quick Mavericks preview. Not going to go too deep into it, but this is like, when I think about this series, the first few thoughts I have is I do think we match up really well with them. I think Rudy's life is going to be a lot easier because while I really like what the Mavericks have going on with Lively and Gafford, they're not Nikola Jokic. They don't beat you off the dribble. It's they're basically you know, rim running, lob threat, rim protecting bigs. Like, that's what they are. They're really athletic. They're a lot of pick and roll action will have them, a lot of screening, but that's really what they do. They're kind of like Gobert in that aspect. And that's a lot easier to guard than, the best player in the world. So, and they don't have like an Aaron Gordon, who's super freaky athletic and is going to shoot 50% from three, whatever reason. Aaron Gordon shot 50% from three. Freaking shot with Steph Curry or something before the series. I don't know. But I think we match up really well with them. Same thing for Cat. Cat's gonna go from guarding Kevin Durant and Nikola Jokic as his primary matchup to PJ Washington. Like PJ Washington was awesome that Thunder series, but a lot of what PJ Washington's gonna do is sitting in the corner and working off of Doncic and Irving kickouts. Like that is so much easier than anything Cat just had to do. I think that's gonna give Cat a lot of energy offensively to even more so improve on what he's done in the first two rounds as an offensive player. And then it's gonna be Jaden on Luca probably. I don't think we would do Ant on him. I think it's be Ant on would it be Ant on Kyrie? I don't know what they'll do there. I think it'll be Ant on Kyrie, but then there's kind of an issue with Derrick Jones Jr. being a lot bigger than Mike. Like that's kind of a matchup the Mavericks could exploit. Not totally sure what the Wolves will do on that front. Maybe they'll put Ant on Derek and Mike will have to guard Kyrie, which it's a really hard task for him, but he's capable. Mike's still a good defender, so it's not like we got a liability on him or anything. But that's kind of my question. And then, I mean, they're gonna have a really hard like it's gonna be hard for them to match up with us, in my opinion. Um, Whoever big is out there is gonna guard Gobert. But then you have a smaller PJ Washington. Maybe Maxi Kleber's back in the series and they start him. Don't think that's going to happen. Don't know why he would start. Uh, that would be kind of weird. But we're just a much bigger team. And so for the Mavericks, their third option, PJ Washington, like I said, awesome series against the Thunder. The Thunder are not us when it comes to defense. I think we're going to limit Doncic and Irving as best we can. And we're also going to, hopefully shut out somebody like PJ Washington because that's what we just showed we did against a better team and the Denver Nuggets. We literally completely took Michael Porter Jr. out. Michael Porter Jr. is a lot better, in my opinion, than PJ Washington as a basketball player. Didn't have a better series than PJ Washington just had, but I don't know anybody who would take PJ over MPJ on their roster. And MPJ was like the fourth option for Denver in this other series. So for the Mavericks, they're probably going to take a game or two at least. Maybe not. My guess is they at least take one game off of a Luka Doncic, masterclass. Like that's expected. Luka's one of the best players in the league. So maybe you can limit him to where that doesn't happen, but expect that to maybe happen. I wrote Cat's life would be easier. I mean, those are kind of my main thoughts with this series. If I had to predict the series, I would predict Wolves in 6. Um, my predictions for the previous series were Wolves in 7 against the Suns and Wolves in 7 against Denver. The Denver one was kind of a homer pick, but that was my pick. So, and I was right. I was actually right. Turns out against the Suns, I was wrong, but it was because we swept them. We didn't win in 7. But yeah, I mean, it's been a really fun postseason so far, and we're hoping to keep that going. We're the favorites to go to the championship game, which is insane to say. I think we've guaranteed this is a successful season to this point, and I'm super impressed with how we've gone about our business the whole year. Mike Inori better be a head coach somewhere next year. Selfishly, I hope he's not because I want him with us again because I think he's awesome. But if any team with a head coaching vacancy is serious, why would you not hire him? He literally just I know Finch was super involved still, but he was literally just like the co-head coach on a team who upset the Denver Nuggets, the defending champions. And it wasn't just that we beat them. Like, look at all the series that Denver's played over the last 2 years with this core. Nobody's even came close to doing what we just did. The closest anybody's came was like a 6-game series. The Suns had them. The Suns lost to them in 6 last year in the second round. That's the closest. Like we you know hit that out of the water with what we just did to them. Um, but yeah, really excited to see this upcoming stuff against the Mavericks. It seems like Kevin Garnett could be in attendance for one of the games. We'll see. I understand that Garnett definitely does not live in Minnesota. Otherwise, he'd probably been to a game by now. But he's got a lot of family stuff with his kids, and he does a lot of podcasting type stuff too. So I know it'd be kind of hard for him to maybe get out here, but I really, really hope that he can make it out for a game because the energy and the vibes would be absolutely ridiculous with Kevin Garnett in attendance. But thank you guys for watching. Hoping for a great series against the Mavericks, and I'll see you guys next video. Peace.